Interpersonal presentation by myself, Hannah Hitchcock. In life, we communicate every day. We all have our different ways of communicating with others, but have we ever stepped back and wondered, what kind of communication traits do I have and why do I have them? I'll be going over some traits that I use when communicating with others and why or how I think I have those traits. In this first slide, the first two traits are supportiveness and defensiveness. Supportiveness is something that I get from many people. My sister was the one that taught me how to have this trait. She would always be there for me, protect me, and make sure someone was always in my corner. I grew up with this model of how to be supportive for someone, and now I try to do my best to do it not only for my sister, but for whoever needs it. Defensiveness is a trait that I used when it came to my childhood years. Since I was a chubby child growing up, I was very self-conscious of how I looked, so I would either make fun of myself or make sure I was invisible so no one else could make fun of me. After getting over that aspect of myself, I learned that if I had just been open and accepted the way I looked, I would have had communicated completely differently and probably would have enjoyed school more. In this slide, I think that at a very young age, I was taught how to have both of these traits by my mother. Reason being is because what is it as a child do you believe in without any question around Christmas time? Santa Claus. This is when the truth bias part comes in. As a child, you trust whatever your parents tell you unless you see another option. You would never even question their answers to your questions or what they told you. Well, back to Santa Claus, waking up in the middle of the night and seeing your mom put presents from Santa underneath the tree kind of raises question for what you have been told about this said Santa Claus. So that brought in some skepticism in my life because suddenly Santa wasn't real and there actually isn't a tooth fairy. So at a young age, I think I was taught how to evaluate or at least consider that maybe what someone is saying might not be reliable or there are other answers to your questions. Social comparison is a very easy thing to do. Growing up with older siblings is great, but it has its setbacks. I have an older sister, and growing up, I looked up to her, and before I knew it, I started comparing myself to her, meaning I would wear her clothes because when she wore them, she looked so nice, and maybe I would look as nice as she did, even though we're completely different sizes. I would compare my friends to her friends and wonder why hers were so cool and mine seemed so average. I soon learned that we are all individually great and unique, and so I shouldn't compare myself to someone that I would never end up being. Closed-mindedness came in effect when I was a freshman in high school. I thought that I was always right and that whatever I knew was the truth was right as well. That all changed when I was introduced to many different types of people in my school. With all different types of beliefs and opinions, I slowly began to have the idea that maybe I'm not the only one with opinions or correct beliefs. My closed-mindedness began to open up at that point when I started opening up. We learn many different things from our family members. A certain trait I learned from my mother and sister was selective attention. This seems to be a common communication trait in the women in my family. My mom and my sister are experts at only hearing what they want to hear, and I remember at a young age getting so frustrated at them and thinking that I would never do that to anyone. Well, I guess that rubbed off on me because I caught myself doing this to my sister the other day while she was talking. I could only recall bits and pieces of her conversation. And then there is pseudo listening, in which I solely taught myself how to do. My sister likes to tell very elaborate stories, and when I was little I couldn't understand what she was saying, so of course I would play along and act like I was listening, when in actuality I wasn't. Openness is a communication trait that I had to work on when I started to get more mature in my life. I would either tell everyone everything or the complete opposite. As I grew up and started forming relationships with people, I began to understand that in a relationship you have to build a healthy way of communicating with the person. During the process of learning how to be open with my communication in a healthy way, I had to actually form a liking for the people I was beginning to open up to. Meaning I had to form a positive relationship and opinion over that person in order to form a healthy relationship to be able to communicate with them openly. In conclusion, the way we communicate and how we communicate will vary on how we were taught and our experiences with communicating with others. Every day and every time we communicate, we learn and we will build our communication skills. Thank you for listening to my presentation.